Have you ever wondered what makes a cancer cell a cancer cell? Welcome to this week's Friday Footnotes. Class is in session, so grab your pen, paper, and your front row seat as we begin to discuss the hallmarks of cancer. But first, what is cancer? By definition, cancer is defined as a group of diseases characterized by both uncontrollable growth and spread of abnormal cells. So when we think about it, cancer cells were once normal cells that abided by a sort of code of conduct or principles that governs proper cellular behavior and functions. And when I think about the principles of cellular biology, a main principle that rises to the top is timing. And I think that King Solomon encapsulated that principle extremely well when he stated in Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1 through 2, there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die. This principle is embedded within the biology of normal cells because they do have molecules or signals that tell them, hey, it's time to divide. Hey, it's time to proliferate. Or hey, it's time to just pause and not divide. And then other signals that tell them it's time to die and make room for new cells, to create this balance and homeostasis within the body. But cancer cells, on the other hand, have a way or ways to defy this code and to defy these principles in order to put them in a mode that is always in proliferation. They're always, growing abnormally or uncontrollably for one reason or another. And that's one of the characteristics actually of cancer cells is this, uncontrollable growth and ability to avoid cell death. And knowing that, we as scientists have been asking for years, what are the other characteristics or what are all the characteristics that cancer cells have that define their identity? Or the question that you and I are asking today, what makes a cancer cell a cancer cell? And that takes us to the landmark paper that came out at the top of the millennium by doctors Douglas Hanahan and Bob Weinberg, The Hallmarks of Cancer. And within that published paper, they took about a quarter of a century of cancer research and distilled the properties that were found across the spectrum of cancer cells into 6 core hallmarks or 6 core properties that cancer cells have. And I just want to briefly touch on them just for introduction purposes. So one of them is this idea or ability of evading apoptosis. Apoptosis is a specific cell death, but it's like I was mentioning in the other slide that a time to live and a time to die. Cancer cells have a way to resist that time to die or resist cell death mechanisms. The other ability that cancer cells have is this self-sufficiency in growth signals, or in other words, they don't need extrinsic molecules to encourage their growth like normal cells do. And on the opposite end of that, they have this insensitivity to anti-growth signals, or they don't respond to molecules that tell them to stop proliferating. And likewise, cancer cells have the ability to invade tissues and metastasize or spread to other parts of the body. Additionally, they have limitless replicative potential, or they divide without hindrance, unlike normal cells that have limits. And lastly, what was noted at this time is this ability of sustained angiogenesis, or the ability to encourage blood vessel growth so that the cancer tissue has nutrients and oxygen flowing to those cells. So fascinating work just over, 25 years of research. These were the 6 characteristics of cancer cells at that time. But over the next 11 years, not only did they solidify more evidence that supported the 6 core hallmarks, there were other, strong evidence that came about that gave them 2 new, what they called emerging hallmarks. So they weren't a part of the 6 just yet. They weren't like core hallmarks, but there was strong evidence to suggest that deregulating cellular metabolism, or like the energy of the cell, plays an important role in tumorigenesis, as well as avoiding immune destruction. There's strong evidence to support that these two properties are things that cancer cells are able to do in order to be cancer cells. And then there's this other principle or idea of enabling characteristics. So things like genome instability and mutation, as well as tumor promoting inflammation. These are qualities that once they happen, they are able to encourage the development of the other hallmarks. So they're not necessarily hallmarks themselves, but they are characteristics that give cancer cells the ability to have the hallmarks. Now, after 11 more years of research published in 2022 are the new dimensions of the hallmarks of cancer. And within that paper, the two once emerging hallmarks, this cellular metabolism reprogramming, as well as avoiding the immune system, are now part of the core 6, making them 8 hallmarks of cancer. We also have 2 new emerging hallmarks. These are, again, new characteristics that have strong evidence to support that cancer cells acquire these abilities in order to become cancerous. And there are 2 new enabling characteristics, in addition to tumor promoting inflammation and genomic instability. So again, I will dive deeper into these things in another video. This is simply just introduction. But one of the main things I kind of wanted us to take away from this is this question: why should we care about the hallmarks of cancer? Why go through, an additional 25 years of research to define what makes a cancer cell a cancer cell? And to simply, quickly answer that question through the lens of our ultimate goal, which is to cure cancer. We have to be able to have the ability to investigate and understand how cancer cells broadly function in order to directly target these major vulnerabilities to the demise of cancer cells. And hopefully, by leaving normal cells alone, we can do more to help cancer patients overcome their diagnosis or overcome their disease. But it's going to require fundamental understanding of the biology of the cancer cells so that we can properly target, the main driving factors of the cancer. So that, in a nutshell, is where I will leave it for now. Please be on the lookout for part 2, where I discuss more of the hallmarks of cancer in greater detail. But until then, thank you for listening. Please like, comment, share as you so see fit. But as always, keep asking questions. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.